Olá a todos, welcome everyone, sejam muito bem-vindos. I'm Bruna Santos, Director of the Brazil Institute here at the Woodrow Wilson Center. I thank you all for your interest in Brazil. Thank you all for your interest in the U.S.-Brazil relations. I want to thank my colleagues here at the Wilson Center in the Latin America program for co-sponsoring this event today. Today we are honored to have the Brazilian ambassador to the United States, Ambassador Maria Luiza Viotti, with us as she outlines her priorities and also her vision on Brazil and in the global stage. We look forward to the insights and perspectives that she will share with us. I also want to thank the Brazil Embassy, the team. I wanted to extend them our appreciation for our ongoing strong partnership, and to honor also the wise words of Ambassador Sérgio Amaral, a remarkable ambassador who left this world last week. He used to say that when we agree, there's no reason not to cooperate, and when we disagree, there is no reason not to say it and then negotiate. So with that, I want to say that here at the Brazil Institute, we value a plural debate of ideas, the debate of Brazilian policies and its interactions with the US and the world. So with that said, it's my pleasure to introduce our president and CEO, Ambassador Mark Green, who will deliver the opening remarks of this event and welcome you all. We have a fortunate, wonderful audience here, and once again, I want to thank you all for coming. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruna, and thanks to all of you for coming here today. As you know, we're a unique institution in the foreign policy landscape. We are congressionally chartered, we're scholarship-driven, and we're fiercely nonpartisan and independent. And to pick up on something that Bruna just said, as we talk about issues and our independence, we believe in the marketplace of ideas. In order to have the marketplace of ideas, you have to have a marketplace and you have to have ideas. So we believe in thorough debate and discussion, and we believe in ideas and tackling the future. Our special status, I think, also brings with it special obligations, and I preach it to our team each and every day. We don't want to duplicate what others are doing. Instead, we want to focus on those issues and those opportunities that are most important, issues where we can add value and issues where we can make a difference, and that makes this a perfect place to host today's discussion. Next year, we'll celebrate 2 centuries of diplomatic relations between the U.S. and Brazil. And in all that time, all that 200 years, I'm not sure the ties have ever been more important than they are today. We're the 2 largest democracies in the hemisphere. And our partnership has been a key force in upholding principles of rule of law and democracy. Our countries are working together to build a brighter, healthier future for our planet. The U.S. supports Brazil's ambitious goals of achieving net zero emissions by 2050 and ending illegal deforestation by 2028. And all this is a priority for the Wilson Center as well. A few months ago, in partnership with the International Conservation Caucus, we hosted an event on the essential role that the private sector in both countries must play in this regard. In short, our view is that there is simply no way for the world to meet its ambitious goals for preserving biodiversity, tackling extreme weather, and creating a shock-free energy transition without the public sector and the private sector in both of our countries bringing their spirit of leadership and innovation to the table. Today, I am delighted to welcome to the Wilson Center Brazil's new ambassador to the U.S., Maria Luiza Viotti. We are honored to provide a platform for the ambassador's first public remarks since she was named ambassador and, as my kids would say, BTW, the first woman to represent Brazil in Washington, D.C. She has a long and distinguished career in diplomacy and politics. She was previously posted to represent Brazil at the United Nations, and if you can survive that experience, you can take on almost anything. When Presidents Biden and Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva met at the White House in February, at the very start of Lula's term, I think it was evidence of the determination by both countries to build stronger ties and find a shared agenda for progress. Today, we are excited to have the opportunity to hear from the ambassador what she believes lies ahead in the U.S.-Brazil relationship and her perspectives on Brazil's democracy, environmental agenda, and foreign policy. Before I turn things over, I'd also like to welcome back to the Wilson Center my good friends Tom Shannon and Tony Harrington. Both were exceptional U.S. ambassadors to Brazil and now exceptional co-chairs for the Brazil Institute. We are lucky to have them, and we look forward to today's discussion. So I guess, Tony, I'm going to turn things over to you, and thanks to all of you again for giving us this opportunity.
If this is on, yeah.
It's on.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you, Mark, for welcoming us and your support for the Brazil Institute and the very active agenda we have. I also want to recognize and thank Bruna, who is doing a terrific job in her few months of undertaking the challenges and opportunities of leading the Brazil Institute, and Benjamin Gadan, head of the director of the Latin America program generally, and thank you for the way that we collaborate, and you and Bruna work so well together. It really makes a difference. And Bruna will moderate a discussion giving opportunities to others after we hear from our distinguished guest. We're particularly honored to have with us Brazilian Ambassador Maria Luiza Viotti. As Mark noted, just recently arrived and having presented her credentials to President Biden. I would say that the very large participation today attests to the strong interest in the relationship between our two countries, both in seizing opportunities and meeting challenges that we find too many of in both our countries and so much of the world today. Before assuming her duties in Washington, Ambassador Viotti served as Chef de Cabinet to UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, Undersecretary General for Asia and the Pacific at the Brazilian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and Ambassador of Brazil to Germany, the first woman ambassador of Brazil to Germany as well. She served on multiple occasions at the mission of Brazil to the United Nations in New York, including as permanent representative to the UN. And during her tenure, she led the Brazilian delegation to the UN Security Council, where she presided on occasion. In addition to a strong focus on multilateral affairs, Ambassador Viotti worked in Brasilia and abroad in areas such as political affairs, trade and investment promotion, public diplomacy, and regional cooperation. She also served as counselor at the Embassy of Brazil in La Paz. The ambassador holds a degree in economics and joined the Brazilian Foreign Service in 1976 after graduating from the Rio Branco Institute, Brazil's great diplomatic academy. So with that, Ambassador, I'll turn the floor over to you. And as you say, we can probably just as easily do it here.
Very well. Thank you very much. I am very pleased to be here at the Wilson Center and the Brazil Institute. I'd like to express my great appreciation to President and CEO Mark Green, to Ambassadors Anthony Harrington and Thomas Shannon, as well as the director of the Brazil Institute, Bruna Santos, for the kind invitation. And I would like to thank you all for your presence here today. I'd like also to recognize Ambassador Liliana Ayalde, another good friend of Brazil, and I also recognize many other good friends of Brazil who are here. Thank you all for coming. I wanted to start by saying that I'm greatly honored to serve as Ambassador of Brazil to the United States, and it is also a personal pleasure for me. I first came to the United States many, many years ago as an exchange student with the American Field program. And this was an experience that had left a profound impression on me, and also, in a way, inspired my career choice. And then I served for many years in New York. I spent many years of my professional life there with the United Nations, and also at the service with the Brazilian mission to the United Nations, and also at the service of the United Nations itself. So in many ways, things have come full circle as I assume my new responsibilities here in Washington. And it is with great enthusiasm that I take up the task of helping to strengthen the Brazil-U.S. relations. And I'm glad to be able to count on the Wilson Center and the Brazil Institute as a partner in this endeavor. And I'd like to say also that I feel that I arrive in Washington at a promising moment for Brazil-U.S. relations. President Lula's visit in February, only 40 days into his administration, sent a very clear message regarding the importance he attaches to Brazil's relations with the United States. And the meeting between President Lula and President Biden had was very productive and very warm, and they also, both presidents set the tone and the priorities for our work going forward. Democracy, human rights, climate change, and sustainable development are at the center of our agenda. Both presidents also pointed out to what our countries can do together in many other areas, like trade, investment, energy, health, and supply chain resilience. We believe that our two countries are also uniquely positioned to build an even stronger partnership in responding to some of the challenges that we face in the region and beyond, such as climate change. And since I arrived, I have heard from U.S. officials a consistent message of willingness and interest in further deepening the relationship with Brazil. And there is an equally strong commitment on our side, on the Brazilian side as well. I'm encouraged as well by the frequency and scope of high-level contacts and meetings that have taken place over the past several months. And we are starting also to reactivate the many bilateral mechanisms that we have to advance work in many different areas. And as it was mentioned by Ambassador Mark Green, we are going to celebrate the bicentennial of the relations between Brazil and the U.S. next year. And we can use this as an additional platform to promote initiatives and projects that will help us strengthen even more our cooperation. And I think that this relationship goes well beyond the two governments. The affinities between our two societies that have been forged over two centuries has helped to foster ties which involve actors at the state and local levels, the private sector, academic and scientific institutions such as this one, as well as civil society organizations. And all those actors make up a complex mosaic underpinning and giving life to our relationship. So I am very committed to consistently engaging with all of these important players. So I would like to highlight maybe 4 areas among many others that I see as very important and where I believe Brazil and the United States can pursue concrete results in the short and medium terms based on the framework laid out by President Lula and President Biden in February. First, to support closer cooperation in fighting deforestation and climate change and in promoting the bioeconomy. And we were very encouraged by the announcement made by President Biden that his administration would work with Congress to contribute to the Amazon Fund, which is an important instrument for us to work on the issues of not only deforestation, combating deforestation in Brazil, but also promoting income and employment in sustainable activities in the Amazon region that would allow us to attend to the needs of the population living there. As you know, there are maybe 28, 30 million people living in this area. Of course, they're mainly in urban, in cities, in urban environments, but whatever we can do to foster sustainable activities that will generate income and employment for them, this will help us in the fight against deforestation and illegal activities in general in the Amazon region. And when I presented my credentials 2 weeks ago, I had the opportunity to hear directly from President Biden how committed he is to this effort and to working very closely with us, with President Lula. He said, I want to work with you, with Brazil, with President Lula, and also I'm going to mobilize other partners in the G7, other countries that can help us work together to achieve results. And we have good news on this front. President Lula's commitment to net zero deforestation in Brazil by 2030 and his consistent action in this regard have started to pay off. Deforestation in the Brazilian Amazon fell by 1/3 in the past 6 months compared to the same period in 2022. Of course, we still face great challenges to keep up with this progress, and there is a difficult also context in which we have within which we have to work in terms of in Congress and with many other players. But I think that there is no doubt about the commitment, the government's commitment, and the fact that we are determined to continue to use all the instruments at our disposal to achieve our goals in this regard. Special Presidential Envoy for Climate, John Kerry, has been in Brazil already. He was there in February. I think he is going again soon, and he has started to work very closely with the Minister of Environment of Brazil, Marina Silva, on a work plan that would allow us to pursue a number of activities, not only related to mechanisms to combat deforestation, but also taking into account what I mentioned before, this idea of trade, investment on sustainable activities. The second area I'd like to highlight is the idea of undertaking specific bilateral projects that could promote supply chain resilience in key industries, such as semiconductors, clean energy, critical minerals, and pharmaceuticals. There have been already conversations in this regard between senior officials and business people with a view to find possibilities, opportunities on which we can work. And I think we need to continue to bring together interested parties, governments, regional organizations, and the private sector to discuss not only public policies in this regard, but also to explore investment opportunities in those sectors. And third, we would like to encourage further measures to strengthen bilateral trade and investment flows in general, with a view to supporting even greater private sector participation in our partnership. Bilateral trade reached an unprecedented level last year, yet it's still falling short of its potential. And investment trends have been strong. The U.S. maintains its position as the main source of foreign direct investment in Brazil, while Brazil investments have been contributing more and more to the generation of jobs and prosperity in America. And when I was preparing to come here, I was surprised to see a number about Brazilian investments, which was perhaps $1 billion in the year 2000 and is now $45 billion. So there has been a very dramatic increase in our participation in terms of investments here, which is very encouraging. In the second half of this year, we will host the new edition of the Brazil-US CEO Forum and the bilateral commercial dialogue. And we are very committed to this mechanism, which has already contributed to the reduction of non-tariff barriers between our countries, to the promotion of trade facilitation and good regulatory practices, and to the improvement of the business environment. And as you know, in Brazil, we are making progress towards macroeconomic stability, social inclusion, and environmental sustainability. We are about to approve in Congress a new fiscal framework and a long overdue tax reform. And these efforts have already contributed to a better economic climate in Brazil. The growth outlook for 2023 has improved, and inflation is in a downward trajectory. So I am confident that these encouraging developments will have a positive impact on our economic relations, as they will certainly translate into new opportunities for trade and investment. And fourth, I think that there is a very good prospect of expanding and deepening our cooperation on a broad range of human rights issues, including the fight against racial discrimination and inequality. The Brazil-US Working Group on Global Human Rights, for instance, was the first mechanism to convene in Brasilia in May, alongside a meeting of the Joint Action Plan to eliminate racial and ethnic discrimination and promote equality, known as JPER. The action plan reaffirms the commitment to human rights, especially the rights of those most vulnerable and historically marginalized, as a guiding principle of our joint efforts to overcome challenges to social justice, inclusion, and equality. In terms of our broader foreign policy, I'd like to say that strengthening bilateral relations with the United States is a priority for us in a complex international landscape marked by increased tensions and uncertainties. And in this broader context, Brazil has sought to renew and expand its engagement with partners in our hemisphere and around the world. In the first 6 months of his administration, President Lula met with 37 heads of state and government, as well as 9 leaders of state groupings and international organizations. Foreign Minister Maria Viotti has been very active as well. He has already engaged with more than 100 of his counterparts in many countries and visited many of them. So constructive engagement lies at the heart of Brazilian diplomacy, and we will remain a strong voice in defense of dialogue, peace, and stability in our region and of a world without war. And we look forward to continuing to work very closely with the United States towards this end. The upcoming Brazilian presidency of the G20 and Brazil's hosting of COP30 at the Amazonian city of Belém in 2025 present additional opportunities to advance bilateral cooperation on issues of global governance. And a top priority of Brazilian diplomacy is resuming ties and strengthening partnerships with the countries in our own region. And this is why President Lula's, one of his first decisions was for Brazil to return to the Community of Latin American and Caribbean States, CELAC, which is meeting with the European Union in Brussels this week. President Lula also hosted in Brasilia a summit of South American presidents in May. And this was aimed at discussing shared challenges and possibilities for strengthening our cooperation in the region. And for us, a developed, democratically stable and integrated South America is key and we believe is in our best interest, of course. Next month, Brazil will host in Belém, in the northern state of Pará, a presidential summit of the Amazon Cooperation Treaty Organization, which will provide an opportunity for countries of the Amazon region to advance a shared environmental and sustainable development agenda with a focus not only on combating illegal deforestation, but also on promoting sustainable production and the bioeconomy. And we, of course, want to continue to work with the United States and our partners in the region on efforts towards generating economic growth, creating jobs, and promoting social inclusion and sustainable development. And I am confident that as we approach the celebration of the bicentennial of our enduring friendship, we can move decisively towards a new and constructive phase in Brazil-U.S. relations. And I look forward to hearing your views and your suggestions in this regard. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. As has been said, like you arrive in a moment that is very unique for Brazil-U.S. relations, not only because of the celebration of 200 years of bilateral relations, but also because we are sharing many similarities and challenges and opportunities. And as Madeleine Albright used to say, democracy has to deliver. And I think one of the biggest challenges we have is to prove the world that democratic countries like Brazil and the U.S. can deliver goods. Something that I've learned a lot from Tom Shannon, who I would like to ask him to start this conversation, also asking questions and commenting what Ambassador Viotti just said. And just before that, I went on one note, I love seeing this full auditorium, but we do have a couple seats here in the front. So for those who are standing, if you'd like to come over, we have like 3 or 4 seats here. Thank you. Ambassador Shannon, please.
Thank you very much, Bruna, and thank you, Ambassador, for being here today with us. It's a tremendous honor and a real pleasure to have all of you here today, a real indicator of interest in the U.S.-Brazil relationship at this important moment, as President Mark Green noted, maybe one of the most interesting, complex, and dynamic, at least in our recent history, and also one with the greatest opportunity. And I'm sure as we open the floor, you'll get many questions regarding the very specific aspects of the moment, whether it be Ukraine, whether it be Venezuela, or beyond. Mm-hmm. But I wanted to pick up on your comments regarding sustainable development and environmental cooperation, simply because the Brazil Institute, over the past several years, as the sustainable development and climate change dialogue between the United States and Brazil atrophied, the Brazil Institute played an important role in fashioning a larger dialogue between our societies, between people in Brazil and in the United States, deeply committed to addressing issues of climate change, deforestation, and protecting not only biodiversity, but also the rights of indigenous peoples who live in the Amazon. But as we did this, we were struck, first of all, by the tremendous interest on both sides of our civil society, but also the fact that we were missing something important, which was all the other countries that are part of the larger Amazon. And so it's good news that President Lula will be engaging with these countries in the near term and helping to fashion an approach to climate change, deforestation, and protection of the Amazon that will be South American. and will give a kind of a larger platform for the United States and other interested countries to engage. But as we think about this, it would be useful to hear from you, first of all, how you understand the multilateral environment at this point, both regionally and internationally, and the role, the larger role that Brazil can play in this multilateral environment, but also how to address significant changes inside of Brazil. What's been striking for those of us who know Brazil well is that in many ways civil society emerges in Brazil around human rights and the environment. But we've also seen the emergence of agricultural interests that have a real desire to develop the Amazon in ways that will produce significant income for Brazil. And how will Brazil manage that tension in its own society as it projects itself globally?
Yeah, big questions. Very big questions. Well, on the multilateral environment, I think that we all share the concern with the fact that we are living at a time of tensions, uncertainties, and also at a time when we see that the main instruments that were created thanks to the leadership of the U.S. after the Second World War are not able to address those challenges any longer. So there is also it's not only a situation of tensions and uncertainties and rivalries, geopolitical confrontations, but also a situation in which we don't have the mechanisms or the instruments of international governance that can really respond to those challenges. So we are at a time in which changes are taking place, and we don't know what will be the kind of international order that will emerge in the coming years. But what we do know is that we have the capacity, the ability to shape this order. And we can work together, countries that are interested in stability, in peace, in prosperity, can work together to shape this new order. And this is what Brazil wants to do, and this is how we see our role in this very difficult, complex world. I think that Brazil has, because of its traditions, its the way we have developed our diplomacy, our diplomatic practice and traditions, our perspective from a place in which, in the Southern Cone or in South America, we are a little bit preserved from the main sources of instability in our world. So we see our contribution as a contribution of promoting peace and stability, because we have enjoyed it in our region. We know how important it is for this to remain, for our region to remain peaceful and stable. So that's our outlook for and standing position, I would say, for projecting our willingness to contribute to a more stable and peaceful world. And this is why sometimes our partners don't understand so much when we call for peace in relation to the conflict in Ukraine. And this comes from our very our conviction based on our experience, our tradition, and it's a very genuine desire that we have to contribute in this regard. On the multilateral environment, I think that Brazil is seeking to contribute to more stability, to peace. We are also very keen to contribute to the efforts going on regarding climate change, which we believe it's one of the most important challenges that we face nowadays. And I think that our cooperation with the U.S. in this regard is very important. It's critical for what we aim to do. We have assumed very ambitious commitments in the Paris Agreement, and we are working with determination to fulfill those agreements. You have mentioned also the significant challenges that we face in Brazil. It is really a challenge that we want to address. The president has been working personally engaged with Congress, with civil society, with many actors in this regard, in order to be able to create an environment in which we can cooperate and move forward. On the tensions between our environmental commitments and economic interests that are there, I think we have a very good partner in the agribusiness community, because they are the ones that are exporting and generating a lot of income and benefiting from the fact that they are able to do it through increased productivity without expanding the agricultural area. So they're very interested in making sure that their activities are sustainable. They're not contributing to deforestation. So they're good allies in our cause to be able to show that even though economic interests may from time to time be seen as adversarial to sustainability, there can be a kind of an accommodation that will allow us to continue to grow and to continue to export agricultural products without damaging the environment. So I think that we're looking for this pathway to be able to continue to move forward.
Thank you. We will take questions in the audience. So we have one over there. Please, they will hand you the microphone. Can you introduce yourself very briefly?
Hi.
Hi.
So my name is Martha Cargo. I actually used to work with American Society Council in the Americas. I've seen you at concerts. I used to run the concert series with Sebastian Zubieta in New York, Emanuele Baldini, Iker Cismonci. They all were in our concert series in New York. I had a question specifically about the languages in the Amazon. So there's been a lot of scholarship locally in the Washington Post about preserving a lot of the languages that are almost extinct in the Amazon. And I was wondering if you, as an ambassador, are going to put any effort, like in terms of you personally, because you didn't mention anything about that, but I know from my own research and my own experience, there are thousands of languages that are already extinct that we don't even know existed. So I was wondering if there's been a lot of Washington Post press about this. So there's people go, like linguists are going down, talking to the last surviving person, with this language, creating apps, and so I was just curious about that.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, the communities, indigenous communities in Brazil, they are very keen on preserving this kind of heritage, the language, their culture, and so on. And they have taken the lead in promoting it and doing a lot of projects using modern technology even to try to preserve this kind of legacy. And we now have a Ministry of Indigenous Issues. I had a virtual meeting with Minister Sonia Guajajara, and I talked to her about her priorities and what we can do on this side to try to foster cooperation with the aim of promoting, not only the cultural heritage of indigenous communities, but also working on projects that would improve health services, education, so a number of issues that, and they are already on the agenda. And we do have this mechanism that I mentioned, the human rights mechanism, that also includes indigenous communities. So we're going to work on that, definitely. Please get in touch with us, and we'll be able to engage with you on this very important issue.
We have a question here. Alessandra, please.
Hi there, Alexandra Beach from YouTube. So nice to meet you earlier, Ambassador. Really appreciate your comments about private sector participation in the Brazilian economy. We are so proud of the vibrant YouTube creator economy that contributes about 6 billion reais and supports about 160,000 jobs in Brazil. You mentioned Brazil's leadership on the issue of human rights. Obviously, that's a personal issue of leadership for you as well. Can I hear more from you about Brazil's commitment to the core human right of freedom of expression, which for many Brazilians these days happens online? Thank you.
Yes, of course. We are very committed to the core human rights, among which freedom of expression is very high. And I think that there is an ongoing debate in Brazil, which also reflects on legislation being proposed in Congress on how best to ensure respect for freedom of expression, and at the same time protect the right to, protect a number of rights that now have been, in a way, questioned or threatened by the advance of technology. So this is an ongoing debate in Brazil. We would very much like to engage with U.S. partners in order to be able to understand better what's happening here and also inform what's going on in Brazil and engage and exchange views on this. And I think this is an area in which we are going to work at the embassy also to try to promote those dialogues and this kind of exchange.
Yeah, we'll take another question here and there. So can we take two, please? Thank you.
Yes, Madam Ambassador, welcome to the United States. My name is Judith Henderson. I served as a Foreign Service officer in Rio a number of years ago. You may, on the very important issue of the Amazon, you may know that in 1997, the United States joined with Brazil in initiating a satellite surveillance project. Raytheon, I believe you know, won the contract. And the original intent of that was twofold, as far as I know. I was marginally involved in that, was to survey the deforestation in the Amazon, as well as to track illegal immigration and drug trafficking. I was wondering if you could comment, and I believe the contract was with the Brazilian Ministry of Defense. Could you comment today on how that General Air Force and perhaps Ambassador Harrington, how that general surveillance project is going?
Well, it's going very well. I think that we depend very much on satellite information to be able to put in place mechanisms that will allow for control of deforestation and illegal activities in the Amazon. From what I understand, we have today a system. I think Raytheon was able to give us the very beginning of this satellite monitoring program. I think it expanded over the years. And right now we have a system that allows us to have information minus 1 day. So whatever happened yesterday, we have the information, so we know if there is a fire somewhere, if there is illegal logging somewhere else. So we have the information, and we are able to mobilize our resources to address this. The problem is we are still, we don't have the ideal conditions to go to those places where illegal activities are taking place fast enough. We don't have the vehicles or the number of people that would allow us to really cover, because it's a huge area, as you know. So I think we still need to improve our capacity in terms of instruments that would allow us to really be more effective in controlling those illegal activities. But we do have the information, and this is very, very helpful in taking action.
Yeah, it was a groundbreaking initiative, primarily space-based, as you suggest, and you know, anything like that calls for upgrading over time, and there may be another round due. But I was proud to be a part of facilitating the CVOM, it was called,
CVOM,
contract and deployment.
We have one question here.
Thank you. Congratulations, Ambassador, and welcome. My name is Susan Bass, and I'm with the global nonprofit EarthDay.org. My question is, given the interest of the U.S. and Brazil in generating income, entrepreneurship, and sustainable development in the Amazon, and also the strong connection between education and climate literacy in creating green jobs in the green economy, is there an opportunity for education and climate literacy to be on the agenda both at the Amazon Summit and within the general U.S.-Brazil cooperative dialogue? Thank you.
Oh yes, definitely, definitely. I think this is something that we need to do more, and there is a great interest in trying to see how best we can expand education and literacy regarding climate, regarding sustainability, sustainable activities. And I think President Lula is also thinking of proposing to the countries that are going to meet next month in Belém, the Amazon countries, to see whether we can set up a kind of an institute that would promote knowledge and scientific development regarding the Amazon. Because we feel that there is need for more knowledge, more information, and more innovation regarding those activities. There is so much we can do with biodiversity in a sustainable way, but we still don't have the knowledge and the information to be able to do that. So this is very much in our thoughts and in our willingness to move forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I welcome other speakers, Tom and Anthony, if they want to comment on any questions. So feel free to jump in. I'm trying to be fair with the questions here. We have plenty, so I'm trying to keep track of who is asking first. We have a gentleman here and another question here, please. If you can hand the microphone. Thank you.
Hi, Gerald Penchina Cárdenas, Georgetown University. I work on energy stuff. I mean, I know you've mentioned it, and but what would this institute do? What would the Amazon Countries Institute do? And thinking in collaboration with the United States, how can Brazil push forward carbon offset markets in South America in general? Yeah, and thank you for being here.
Yeah, well, I'm not an expert, but I think that we have seen over the past few years how acai has grown in the world. I mean, the market for acai, because it's a health food, it's something energetic and so on. So I would imagine that what happened to acai can happen to many other products of the forest that would allow us to generate activities that are sustainable and will be able to generate income and employment in the Amazon region. So I think we are looking into opportunities in fisheries, in use of biodiversity that go even beyond health and food, but also can also leverage economic activities. So there is already, I mean, we can base our efforts on what we already know, but there is so much we don't know. So we need also to foster research and development of new products, of new resources that are there, and we still don't have an economic use for them.
The question here.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Tania Hope. I am with the Ralph J. Bunch International Affairs Center at Howard University here in Washington, D.C. I'm also an original member of the U.S. Civil Society Committee for JAPER, and I was very pleased to hear you mention that in your remarks, and I was hoping you could elaborate a little bit more about your hopes and expectations for JAPER moving forward. I know it's been dormant for a number of years. Very happy that it is alive again. I wanted to know what you see moving forward for JAPER. Thank you.
Very good question. Well, the working group just convened very recently. I think they adopted a work plan, and they have decided on a broad range of issues that will be addressed in their work plan. And I think that on the Brazilian side, we are very interested also not only in discussing public policies and institutional arrangements that would favor inclusion and fight discrimination, but also on concrete initiatives that would help us improve services to marginalized communities in terms of health, education. We would like to work also on very concrete projects that can improve the lives of those communities. So we I think have a broad range of issues to address, and we would very much welcome your suggestions as we go forward in this work.
So I'd like to ask Tom and Tony to give us their final remarks. We are ending it, and I want to, in advance, thank you all for coming. We have a full auditorium, and I'm sorry for those who had raised their hands and I couldn't call. I was trying to keep track of everyone in order it was coming. Thank you so much. Tom?
Well, thank you very much, Bruna, and Madam Ambassador, thank you very, very much. I had the great pleasure of working with you at different instances in my own career, and your professionalism, your expertise, and your skill as a diplomat were well known and well respected. And we're very lucky, the United States is very lucky to have you here as Brazil's ambassador. And I'm sure my former colleagues at the Department of State and elsewhere realize that they have a real opportunity to reconstruct and redirect a bilateral relationship which will be a foundational part of 21st century diplomacy, not only because of our common trajectory as two great democracies, but also because of the nature of our societies. And the question about JPER is a very appropriate one, because JPER began as an effort to remind both the United States and Brazil that we had similar histories when it came to slavery, when it came to immigration, when it came to racism and ethnic discrimination, and that understanding that created a basis for cooperation and collaboration. And in the aftermath of our pandemics and seeing the impact of the pandemics on marginalized communities and underrepresented communities only strengthens the importance of building out that kind of cooperation and collaboration. And I think this is where, as Bruna noted, democracy can show that it can deliver the goods. And in many ways, I think one of the largest challenges facing Brazil and the United States are not the many geopolitical issues that swirl about us right now, but our ability to show our own citizens that working together we can accomplish what needs to be done and create space for all of our citizens, not just to have a voice in determining national destinies, but to have a voice in determining individual destinies. And so I wish you good luck in this. I'm delighted by the presence here today. I think the interest and the engagement is an important signal of hope for this relationship, and I wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I frequently feel after Tom talks that what Tom said is but no, I think the right person at the right time applies to your arrival and presence here in Washington as a vehicle for serving common interest, and maybe doing a few things that are apart from the U.S. And Brazil in the multilateral arena, which you're naturally going to be doing for G20 and other fora, COP and whatever. But consider the Brazil Institute a resource and friend to you and to Brazil, and call on us, tell us what we're doing right and wrong, or need to focus on, or whatever. Bem-vindo.
Obrigado. Obrigado.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. And as Tony said, we have a couple upcoming events. We are hosting 2 events during the Climate Week in New York, one on food systems and sustainability, the other one on climate finance. We also have a Rule of Law and Agile Governance Conference in October 16. And now you have raised the bar. I haven't seen such a crowded room in an event on a summer morning here in DC. So it's very exciting to have you all here. Please, you are all who are attending very welcome to the Brazil Institute at the Wilson Center always. And once again, Ambassador, thank you so much. Welcome. Bem-vinda.